Hi, I'm Christina Janzer, and I lead the user research team here at Slack. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for coming. At Slack, we are committed to making people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. Today, I'm going to talk about building a product that furthers this mission, and specifically about some of the research we do to inform that. While I'm sure many of you have worked with user research before, I'm just going to take a few moments to walk through what we think about and what we do at Slack. And come find me after. We have a research booth downstairs. If you take a survey with us, we'll donate some money to charity. But we'd love to hear more about what you do and what you think about Slack, and also what user research looks like at your company. At a high level, my team focuses on understanding people, understanding how work happens, and understanding how we can build the best tools to enable that. Let me walk through this in a little bit more detail. My team spends a lot of time observing, listening, and talking to customers using various research methods. We do everything from small sample research with just a handful of customers to large-scale surveys across thousands of people. We talk to people all over the world, across different industries and company sizes. And I'll be the first to admit, sometimes conversations with customers are painful. It's really tough to watch someone struggle to use your product or hear them talk about all the things they dislike about it. But most of the time, these conversations are incredibly enlightening and help build empathy for our customers. I might know what it's like to be a user researcher at a tech company in San Francisco, but we want Slack to have much broader reach. And I have no idea what it feels like to be in sales at a large company in Japan. And that's why my team exists, to learn about and build empathy for the diverse set of customers we're trying to serve. This foundational understanding sets us up to put people first. In addition to understanding individual people, we also study work trends. How does work happen across different industries and different markets? What challenges are unique to different roles, such as engineering and customer support? What are the ways in which teams communicate with each other? And what values and traditions do they adhere to? What are the many steps and tasks and workflows required to get a job done? The questions never end. But this understanding of how work is happening provides us with the information and inspiration to build a product that solves the problems that people, teams, and companies face every day. Finally, we take our understanding of people and work and use it to bring humanity into the product we build. By combining our insights about people and our understanding of how work is happening, we're in a unique position to build a tool that fosters productivity. But we have ambitious goals. We think that by putting people first and by bringing humanity into the product, we also have the opportunity to build a product that people will love, and a product that will delight them. So hopefully this gives you a good idea about what my team focuses on. And if you remember just one thing, is that we care deeply about understanding the people we're building for and the people we are trying to serve with our product. Okay, so I just spent a bunch of time talking about user research, and I know you're expecting me to talk about building a product. But I'm a researcher. And as a researcher standing in front of hundreds of people, I see opportunity. Opportunity to do free user research. So, humor me for a second here. I'd like to see a show of hands. Who here loves their job? All right, got some happy people here. Unfortunately, the data paints a sad picture. People aren't engaged. They're overwhelmed, and they feel stressed. Now, it's easy to look at this data and think, oh, How depressing. But as a researcher, I look at this data and I think, wow, we have a huge opportunity to improve people's working lives. Now, I can't control everything. I like to think that I can. But at Slack, we're working to improve one aspect of people's working lives by focusing on the tools that they use every day. So let's look at some more data, this time about tools. These are the words that people currently use to describe work tools. So some of these are great. I see professional and efficient up there. But I also see boring and complex and complicated. I think there's some room for improvement, right? Now, let's compare the previous word cloud with the same question asked of the same people, but about consumer products. It looks a lot different, right? We start to see words like fun and engaging and intuitive. Now you might be thinking, of course there are going to be differences. They serve different purposes. And while yes, there are inherent differences between consumer products and work products, I can't help but ask myself, maybe one way to improve people's working lives is by giving them more engaging tools they feel as positively about as some of their favorite consumer products. What if the best parts of enterprise tools, what if we combine the best parts of enterprise tools with the best parts of consumer products? Could that make people happier and therefore more engaged and more productive at work? So I'm going to challenge us to have higher expectations for the work products that we build and use every day. What would it look like to bring more fun, more humanity, and more delight into the tools that we use at work? In order to do this, I'm going to share some design principles that we think about at Slack. Now, while you might typically associate these with consumer products, I'm going to talk through how we use them as inspiration for building for the enterprise. All this while not losing sight of the core purpose of the tool, to foster productivity. The first design principle is to put people first. So what does this mean? Establishing a line of communication between you and your customers is really important. Now, sometimes people will tell you what they feel and how they feel and what new feature they want, and that's amazing. But often, you have to do your own detective work to really understand how people are feeling or what's really triggering them to ask for a certain feature. Often, this deeper understanding can uncover even more clarity and opportunity. I think this translates really nicely to real life, too. Sometimes my husband will ask me, "Honey, what's wrong?" And I'll respond, "Everything is fine." But what I really mean is, nothing is fine, everything is wrong, why can't you read my mind? Understanding what's going on one level deeper is the key to a successful marriage and a successful product. Let me give you a couple more relevant examples. I heard a really fascinating story on a podcast a few months ago, and it was about Netflix and all the work that's gone into perfecting their recommendation engine, which I'm sure many of us have benefited from. The podcast shared an anecdote from user research they did, where they asked people to list genres that they were most interested in. They found that many people listed genres such as foreign movies and documentaries. But in practice, they found that they were renting movies that were much less aspirational. Now, is it that these people were lying? Of course not. I'm sure there is a big part of them that wants to be the person that watches documentaries. But there is also a big part of them that just wants to sit back, relax, and watch The Office. For Netflix, putting people first means not just responding to what they say, but also observing what they do. So how does this tie back to enterprise products? Let me tell you another story, this time about Google Docs. At Slack, we found that people wanted a way to easily share Google Docs. Easy. All we need to do is build an integration that allows them to share these docs within Slack. Problem solved, right? But if you take a step back and figure out, what do they really want? They really want a way to share docs with their coworkers so that they can collaborate and share comments. Collaborating and sharing comments being the most important part. Now, how many times have you shared a Google Doc with someone only to realize after the fact that you forgot to open up permissions while you're out of the office on your phone and you couldn't do anything about it until you got back to your computer? I do this all the time. And people don't blame me. In fact, they usually understand why that happened. But this is part of the experience, and it's a huge opportunity to surprise and delight. But without thinking about the need not just being to share a doc, but to share a doc in order to collaborate and share comments, you would easily build a feature without addressing the entire problem. And so, in understanding the underlying need, you're able to anticipate potential problems and hiccups and design for the entire experience. And that's why we've trained Slackbot to do just this. By noticing that a file isn't viewable to the person it was just shared with, Slackbot prompts you to fix it online before it becomes a problem. So thank you, Slackbot, for reading my mind and knowing what I need. The second design principle is to bring humanity into the product. One of the top concerns we hear across many different research studies with many different office workers is the worry that written communication will be misinterpreted and that tools are impersonal. Nothing can beat face-to-face, right? In fact, in a recent study we did across 3,000 office workers in the US, we found that across all different types of workers and companies, 25% expressed concern that written communication would lead to miscommunication. In this same study, 60% indicated that in-person communication was their preferred method, above email, above phone, and above video. Now, when you interview people about this, it makes total sense. As offices have become more distributed and people have started to use more tools, we've lost some of the ability and opportunity to pick up on human cues, like body language and physical presence. Imagine this. If your entire company worked in the same room, you'd know if somebody was out of town because they wouldn't be at their desk. You know if someone was having a bad day because you'd be able to see the look in their face. You know if someone was extremely busy because you'd see a huge pile of papers stacked on their desk. And you know if somebody was otherwise unavailable because you'd see them in a meeting room or on a phone call, and so on and so forth. These cues are really important, and I want us to think about and talk about how we can build these human cues and connections into our product. I actually think we can learn a lot from social products here. So let me share a bit about how we think about bringing humanity into our product at Slack. The first is with emotional cues. Emotional cues help us figure out how someone is feeling and whether they're happy or sad, for example. Let's say you had to tell your boss that you were going to be late on a deadline, and she responded, "That's fine. How would you feel?" What if she responded like this? It would be a little bit more clear how she really felt, right? Or if you finished wrapping up a long, long project, having sacrificed nights and weekends for months, and you sent it to your client, and they said, "Thanks." Would you assume that they were happy? What if they said it like this? Maybe that would better convey their excitement and their appreciation for all of your hard work. When I was putting together this presentation, I was thinking a lot about the word okay. And I have to say, I really hate it. What does it even mean? Is it good or is it bad? So the reason I was thinking about okay is because I had to cancel dinner plans with a friend the other night because I was working on this presentation, and she responded, okay. And I didn't know, was it really okay? If she had responded like this, with the tears, I would have thought, oh, she's really sad I canceled. She really wanted to hang out. Or if she had responded like this, with a hug, I would know that she knew I would only cancel if I really had to, and I must be stressed and in need of a hug. Or if she had responded like this, with the, I think it's called rage face, then my fears would be confirmed. It was indeed not okay. So I think we're probably all used to using emojis in our social communications, but we've seen them be a really useful tool to help convey emotions and to help bring more color, more clarity, and more fun into work communications as well. But it's not just about fun. Introducing emojis helps reduce ambiguity and miscommunication, therefore increasing productivity. Physical presence is also really hard to detect online. So we've introduced the custom status feature to help people understand what you're doing. Are you on vacation? Are you in a meeting? Or are you just in a different time zone? This provides more information that you can refer to when attempting to communicate with someone. There are also real-world physical needs that we need to think about supporting. Sometimes you need to chat with someone behind closed doors in private. Sometimes you want to have a group discussion in front of a bunch of people. And sometimes you just need peace and quiet to get work done. There are many different ways that people get work done. There is no one size fits all. There is no one right way. And that's why Slack has a variety of tools and features to support all of the ways in which work happens. Finally, building personal relationships is really important as well. It helps establish trust and build camaraderie. In real life, you might think of this as water cooler chat. One way we've enabled this on Slack is through community channels, which give you a way to connect with coworkers around shared interests and topics. I got added to the Parents channel when I first joined Slack, and it's provided me with a feeling of connectedness and togetherness, that I'm not alone in my journey of balancing work and family. This has helped me connect with people I might never have met, and it helps me feel like I'm able to bring my whole self to work, not just my professional half. And the constant stream of pictures of chubby cheeks is a nice break as well. So no matter who you are, whether a parent or a fellow Beyoncé admirer, you can find your people to connect with. The third design principle is that delight matters. Now you might be thinking, what does it mean to mix delight with work? Let me tell you the magic formula. You take one foosball table, one keg, free food, and voila, happy employees, right? I'm just kidding. When I talk about delight, I'm not talking about company perks like free food and booze, although I know that that's appreciated by many. But what I'm talking about is delight in the actual job, in the day-to-day tasks, in the work that you're doing. Given that work takes up so much time, I want us to think about bringing delight into the tools that people use all day long to get their work done. Can we make people's core jobs better by creating an engaging experience similar to what you might expect from a social product? We think about this in a couple different ways. First is by adding delightful experiences throughout your product. Kudos Bot is an example of a tool we've built to enable a feel-good experience within your normal workflow. I think we can all agree it's nice to be thanked for doing good work. We see that this simple feature is a really easy way to both give and receive feedback in a lightweight way that helps you feel recognized, valued, and appreciated. Small details like this can lead to much happier and more engaged employees. The second is by finding delight in increased productivity. By making jobs easier and by removing unnecessary hurdles and steps, we are making people happier. I'm sure we've all been involved in a long and disorganized email chain. Picture this. You email out a file to your team asking for feedback. You get a bunch of reply alls indicating that people got it, are reading it, or will read it later. I'm sure a lot of people didn't reply at all, and you're wondering, did they get it? And then some people reply all with feedback. Some people reply just to you. Some people reply to you and one other person. And then some people reply all and add a bunch of more people to the thread. After a few days, it's a mess. It's disorganized and it's frustrating. Now, imagine if you had to deal with this all day long. Trust me, I've been there. And we've seen people use Slack for the same use case. Only this time, people share a file in a channel. People can use the eyes emoji to indicate they saw it and are looking at it, and it organizes all of those responses together. And then they use a checkmark emoji to indicate they already looked and already provided feedback. So you can easily track who saw it and who actually did the action. And then they can add someone to channel if they think they need to see it as well. We want this experience to feel courteous. Slack gives you the information you need in an organized way, while not inundating others with information they might not need. It's productively delightful. I often hear people talk about the fact that communication tools can easily lead to miscommunication, that chatting with someone over a messaging service is never quite as good as meeting with them face-to-face, or sharing a document is always better if you're in the room together. But work is changing. Offices are becoming more distributed. Remote work is becoming much more common. Not everyone has the luxury of meeting face-to-face, even when you work in the same building. So we need to shift the conversation from thinking of tools as the problem, because tools have to be the solution as well. I hope these design principles have inspired you to think about bringing humanity and delight into the tools that we use, and that by putting people first, by bringing humanity into the product, and by focusing on delight, tools actually have the ability to bring people and companies closer together and to make work simpler, more pleasant, more productive, and more fun. Thank you so much.